Good evening. My name is Steve Shute, and I'm an IT Systems Administrator for Gardner, Kansas. I'm a married, lifelong conservative professional with 3 young children, all boys. And I stand before you tonight as a proud supporter of Dr. Ron Paul for President. You may wonder why I'm telling you all these things in a political caucus, but I believe it's critical that you know who I am, because I will be spending most of the next 10 minutes of your time dispelling a whole host of myths about who the media says Dr. Ron Paul is and who his supporters are, and why you should consider supporting him this evening. There are many misconceptions that exist surrounding Dr. Paul and his positions. Here are the facts. Dr. Paul is a conservative Republican, not a libertarian, with all due respect to our libertarian people here, who has proudly represented the 14th District of Texas as a Republican for the last 10 years. Before that, he served 5 additional terms for the same district from 1974 to 84, again as a Republican. Although Ron Paul ran as a Libertarian candidate for president in 1988, he is not a Libertarian. He is in fact a strict Republican constitutionalist who believes that our current government is out of control and needs to be put on a serious weight loss plan. Dr. Paul is a certified medical doctor who, as an obstetrician gynecologist in his hometown of Lake Jackson, Texas, has delivered over 4,000 babies. As a result, he is staunchly pro-life, and he believes that a federal right to an abortion, as codified in Roe v. Wade, is bad constitutional law. In fact, he believes that Roe v. Wade is in direct violation of the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, which states that any powers specifically granted the federal government by the Constitution are to be reserved to the states and to the people. Speaking of the 10th Amendment, Dr. Paul believes that a whole host of government agencies and mandates are in violation of that amendment, starting with the Department of Education. Republicans used to talk of dismantling this agency, but with the advent of No Child Left Behind, this unconstitutional agency has ballooned to double its size in the last 10 years. He believes that local school districts and parents know better how to teach their children than bureaucratic paper pushers in Washington, D.C. In that same vein, he is a steadfast advocate of the rights of those parents who wish to homeschool their children to do so free from government interference. I am increasingly convinced that in 2008 our great nation stands at a crossroads. The outcome of this upcoming election will profoundly affect the people of this country for generations to come, for good or for ill. Because of our hubristic, unconstitutional, and arrogant foreign policy, we are no longer the shining city on a hill that Ronald Reagan envisioned. In his time, we were known as the country that brought down the Berlin Wall and freed the peoples of Eastern Europe without firing a single shot. Now, we are known from Guantanamo Bay, for Abu Ghraib, for nation building, open-ended occupations, and preemptive war. Around the world, we are despised for our arrogance and loathed for our insensitivity. Our image abroad is as tarnished as our politicians are at home, and that is saying a lot, folks. Whatever happened to the Jeffersonian doctrine that we should be friends of all nations, with entangling alliances with none? We have an overextended, overreaching, and resented foreign policy presence that, in Ron Paul's words, has actually increased our isolation in the world stage and not decreased it. People need something and someone to hope for and to believe in again. And that's why so many people from all walks of life and all types of political affiliations are supporting Dr. Paul. We need someone who cares more about the Constitution than party labels or corporate dollars, who thinks of the written foundation of our system of government as more than just a damn piece of paper. We need someone who puts the good of our country ahead of our own self-interest or personal enrichment. We need someone who has the guts to use the bully pulpit of the presidency to stand up for all the God-given rights of all Americans, rich or poor, born or unborn, regardless of color or creed. We need someone who will stop the further encroachment of government into every aspect of our daily lives, into our pocketbooks, and into the freedoms that were guaranteed originally under the Constitution of the United States. We need someone who will engage in a responsible, non-interventionist foreign policy that respects the rights and decisions of other peoples while defending our own. We need someone who will enforce the borders of this country so that terrorists that are hell-bent on destroying us from within will not get free rein to invade us from without. We need someone who understands the true intent of the Second Amendment of the Constitution as a last defense against tyranny and protects the unfettered right to keep and bear arms. We need someone who will insist on free but fair trade with other nations, who manipulate their currencies and utilize loopholes to exploit our economic weaknesses with the ultimate intent of destroying our standing in the world via our currency. China and Saudi Arabia owe 25% of our national debt. Is this right? We need someone who will truly work to abolish the illegal, unelected, and unaccountable Federal Reserve System and the illegal Internal Revenue Service, who will get rid of the income tax and rein in the reckless spending of a runaway federal government. We need someone who will get the government bureaucrats, HMOs, and large corporations out of our healthcare system and will unleash the twin forces of competition and entrepreneurship to drive down costs in a true free market healthcare environment. And finally, we need someone who will assume that the American people are capable of handling their own affairs without having to be babysat by nanny government. We need someone who has a proven, unassailable record of consistency, integrity, and principled leadership over 10 terms in the House of Representatives. A person whose record is so squeaky clean that lobbyists and special interests don't even bother to visit his offices on Capitol Hill. What other contender for the presidency can say this? I urge you tonight, as Americans, as Kansans, as people in the 3rd District, to give careful consideration to this great man, and one that actually follows the leading and lessons of those who drafted our Constitution. Dr. Ron Paul, thank you.